Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch One. Thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Patek Philippe Perpetual Calendar 5940J-001. You can see this Patek Philippe Grand Complication and buy it on our website, watchyouwant.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. if you enjoy these videos, and you can click on the card in the upper right-hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full listing for this watch with additional accessories included, high-resolution images, and naturally complete pricing details. And I will add, the accessory set for this watch is very impressive. Now on my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, it's not a huge watch, but the cushion case profile, very much a vintage inspired, gives it a bigger presence and almost an outsized persona that defies its 37mm width from 3 to 9 and its very compact 44.5mm lug-to-lug span. Now that lug-to-lug span is exactly the same as what you'll see on something like a Rolex Datejust on a strap, and yet this watch appears far larger. The broad stretch and span and stance of this watch makes it look like a 42, even a 43 when it's on the wrist, and yet at only 8.5mm thick with a stepped bezel and a slanted case flank, it easily slides underneath any dress cuff or tight sleeve. It is the quintessential dress complication, and ergonomically it lives up to that reputation. Now the watch does have traditional straight spring bars, so you can pull the strap down and around the tight curve of a smaller wrist. You'll also note Patek Philippe's use of its characteristic pull-tab spring bars, so you can release the strap on both sides without resorting to a tool. No need to shove a screwdriver in between the lug and the strap and risk marring that gold. This can be done with your fingernails only, so swapping shoes, as they say, is quite easy. Now it's paired with a nicely made pin buckle. For on-the-fly adjustment, you can see nicely beveled, beautifully shaped, also a product of Patek Philippe. It's the perfect complement to a very traditional watch. And when I say traditional, I mean this is a case form that derives its essential lines from the 1920s and 30s. It's really not a thing of our time, and that continues right down to the railroad style minutes track outboard of the applied and stylized Arabic numerals. Now they have a very Art Deco look to them. The font chosen is undoubtedly a nod to Patek Philippe history. You also note that the dial itself is a matte silver, not a sunburst, so it has a mellow mood to it. It doesn't explode in the light. It's always sober, always reserved, always rather conservative, and yet unmistakable. Now you can see that all the sub-registers are countersunk into the dial to add a little bit of texture and another plane to focus the eyes. This is a very complete calendar. It has, of course, the day, date, the month. It also has a 24-hour indicator to help you avoid the danger zone where you shouldn't set the calendar, but it also functions as a nice AM/PM indicator. And naturally, there is a beautiful bosom-style moon phase sunken into the date radial display at 6 o'clock. Now, the watch features beautiful yellow gold foy or leaf style hands at center, and they're driven by a Patek Philippe micro rotor caliber 240Q. Now the micro rotor itself is incredibly efficient but also incredibly slim. By keeping the winding system in the same plane as the rest of the bridges and the balance, it allows the watch to be very, very slim, almost like a manual wind caliber, but with the convenience, especially given the complexity of the calendar, afforded by automatic winding. Now it's also high-tech in its use of materials. You can see the Patek Philippe seal, so you know it was made post-2009, but you can also see, if you look at it under a loupe, that it has the Silinvar Spiromax amagnetic silicon hairspring on a traditional free-sprung Patek Philippe Gyromax style balance, very resistant to shock-induced timing variations, now also virtually immune to the effects of magnetism, a long-time downfall of mechanical watches. Now ceramic rotor bearings ensure that the rotor itself is borne by a completely unlubricated foundation for superb longevity, and naturally all of the finishing standards, though bearing the Patek seal, remains very much to the highest traditions of Geneva and the Poinçon that preceded it. You can see the rich Côte de Genève linear across the rotor, tight engine turn perlage across the base plate. This 27 jewel movement also has mirrored anglage along the flanks of all bridges, and these are the proverbial 20 Swiss franc screws, polished almost to a fault and chamfered down their slots. Even the pilots, the threaded portions underneath the stalk, on their very bottom, they are mirrored. This is extraordinary watchmaking, and there's a reason that this watch is part of the Grand Complications family of Patek Philippe's. The Perpetual calendars are a spectacular tradition, and this one is an exceptional example in the modern era, mostly because it is such an exception. In an era when round watches generally dominate the Patek Philippe catalog, this is a beautiful throwback. It has a presence and a character that's almost more Vacheron Constantin than Patek Philippe. The dramatic, sensuous case flanks, the beautifully integrated lugs, the slim profile. In many ways, this is a Patek Philippe built with a Vacheron Constantin sensibility. I dig it. You can see this Patek Philippe 5940J and buy it on our website, watchyouwant.com.